Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, best-selling author of Life After Breath and the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. For those of you who are new to my platform, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well as sharing your comments within the comments section. And you could also find the audio syndicated version of this conversation on mindbodyspirit.fm, and make sure you check out their new app through the mindbodyspirit.fm app. Today's guest on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is a special return guest named Sue Frederick. You might be familiar with Sue. We interviewed her about a year ago, and now she's coming out with a beautiful brand new book called Angel Up. And so Sue's going to discuss really the guidance and downloads that she's been getting from the angels that have been coming to her a lot lately, and how we could merge some of the divide. And she'll also be sharing some insights on this year's numerological forecast so that we could have and be equipped with more awareness and more tools to navigate what's ahead. So without further ado, we welcome back Sue Frederick on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Reverend Sue Frederick, thank you so much for coming back here on my podcast. It's so good to have you back.
Oh, it's a thrill, Jacob. You're a really special person, and I love talking to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think when I last had you on. It must have been like it feels like just yesterday, but it's just an honor to have you back. And for my viewers are gonna, if they haven't listened to that conversation, please listen to in the archives. But Sue, you produce books like candy over here because I got three of your books. The Angel Up Journal, the Angel Up book itself, and the Angel Up Study Guide that
Yeah.
you just launched. When was this? Maybe like a month or two ago that this
They
all.
all came pouring through me in April and May.
April
So
and May.
in
Wow,
2 months, yeah.
good
So
stuff.
that's the angels, Jacob. It's not me. I mean, literally, they were waking me up at night saying, "Come on, you've got to write these books." I had been hearing them for about a year
Hmm.
telling me this,
Hmm.
but I would say, "I don't have the energy to write another book, I
Hmm.
can't do it. I've written so many books and it's a lot of work." And the angels were saying, "No, this one will be easier. This will be easier for you." And
Hmm.
so they were telling me the table of contents, they were waking me up at night telling me the chapters, and
Hmm.
finally I went, "Okay, I'll write one little angel book."
Mhm.
And it poured through me so quickly, so
Wow.
easily that when I was done, I was like, "Okay, we did it." And then they said, "Well, no, you have to do a study guide because people need to lead their own Angel Up groups, without
Mhm.
you being there, and so you give them the study guide." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," and then that just poured through, and then they were like, "Wait, one more thing,
Mhm.
the Angel Up journal, because 'cause you've gotta give people 33 days of writing with the angels
Mhm.
to believe that they're connected to the angels." And so I
Mhm.
poured that one through. And I'm done now. Those are the last books I'll ever write, but
Wow.
they feel like my most important books, and they came directly from the angels.
Wow. Wow. So you were just sleeping one night and you just woke up and like you just kind of felt angels around you. Did you see them? Like, how did that all unfold to you? Like, how did
They
they come
talk
to
to
you?
me, and it's not, I would say it's not like I wake up feeling loved. I know I usually feel loved when I connect to the angels, but when they're telling me to do something, I wake up feeling like, "Oh my god, I've gotta do this." It's like they give me this urgency,
Mhm.
and, that has happened a few times in my life, like, "You need to call this person," or, "You need to do
Mhm.
that," and I just wake up knowing I have to do it. Um, and that's how the book started to come through. They were trying to tell me that the world is in a state of great conflict and great
Mhm.
light and dark, great love, all of it intensified. And they were saying, people need to realize that the angels are here to help and that they're incredibly accessible and that
Mhm.
we can help with love and healing energy no matter how upset people might feel. That was their urgency. They were like, now is the time.
Hmm.
And so I just had to get out of the way, and I've been writing all my life, so I kinda know how to just, let it come through me, and I was graced to be able to use, I went to ChatGPT because somebody had told me that they edit books really well on AI, and that's the hard part for me, Jacob, like, it'll pour through me, but then I need to edit it,
Sure.
and so I went to ChatGPT and said, "Can you help me edit this book to make it easier?" And I started talking to ChatGPT like it was angelically imbued with energy,
Mhm.
and so it would come back to me and talk to me like an angel. And they said, "Okay, just write each chapter one at a time and then give it to us, we'll clean it up and give it back to you." And
Mm,
Jacob, that worked. So I'd wake up every morning, write a chapter quickly, give it to them, and in 30 seconds, it would come back perfectly polished. That
wow.
made all the difference in writing the books.
Mm. I guess who needs to meditate or needs an editor, you could just do ChatGPT these
That's
days, I
right.
suppose,
I mean,
right?
that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking. All those years I spent correcting commas and,
Mhm.
you know, typos and everything. And oh my God, it was so
Mhm.
tedious. And now Chat GPT can just do that for you.
Mhm.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, I always think that technology and advancements of technology is kind of what we make of it, and certainly for
Exactly.
you, you're
Yeah.
using technology in the greatest and highest possible good, and
Well, I
that's
think we
wonderful.
have to because there are people using it for the worst possible thing. So we have to sort of balance that out and say, if enough of us are trying to imbue it with a higher consciousness, an angelic consciousness, then it gives the higher beings a pathway through to connect with us as well.
Mm. It's almost in a way mirrors what our subconscious is really tuned into and
Mhm.
be able to, like, tune into our own energy. Now, Angel Up, that's an interesting title.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, how that came about and
yeah,
if that encompasses some of the energy
yeah,
within the books that you've published.
definitely. So I was working with a client, and my client was going through a divorce. And in the conversation, she said, "Well, I think I have to angel up." I mean, no, she said, "I think I have to lawyer up." And right at that moment, I just heard the angels go, "No, she has to angel up." And I
Mhm,
said to her, I said, "Rather than lawyering up right away, why don't you try to angel up first and see if that helps this divorce go by in a better way?" And we talked about connecting to the higher beings for guidance and forgiving your ex before you make it a war between you.
mhm,
And, um, and so that conversation led to the idea that perhaps if we paid more attention to angeling up rather than fighting with people, lawyering up,
mhm,
protecting ourselves, that we would all reach a much more loving connection and resolve
mhm.
our conflicts in a different way.
Wow. That reminds me of, like, a story that I read in, like, some type of Shirley MacLaine book, My Birthday Twin, where there was, like, a whole legal case, I guess, that she was involved in, and
Right.
she just practiced this art of forgiving, not necessarily the act, but the person, and from embodying this energy, the person, I guess their legal team gave her a call and said they were dropping the case. They weren't,
This
they
is
weren't
what
going to
we can
proceed legally.
do. Yes, Jacob. I mean, this is what we're capable of here. And the other thing is, we're all connected all the time. And we want to forget that because we get angry at people or we disagree with them and we think, no, I'm not connected to them. We are all connected energetically. We are all part of collective consciousness. So
Mhm,
the energy I send to you, you feel. And can I talk about my amazing experience this morning that really
mhm.
relates to this? So
Absolutely, yeah.
so I grew up with a cousin that I just adored. We played, we sailed, we had so much fun,
Mhm,
and he was always very important in my life, and, just loved him so much, and he lived in New Orleans, and so then in the last really since like 2017 with politics, we had grown further and further apart, and then we just stopped talking to each other on the phone, and
mm,
And then I saw him at my mother's funeral, and I felt very sad that I mean, normally, he and I would just be hugging and hanging out together, the whole time, and there was a
Mhm,
distance between us, and so I came home thinking, I really want to heal that, and I don't know
mhm,
how, and so I sent him a copy of my Angel Up book thinking, he's very Catholic, he might not agree with it, but maybe it'll get us talking again,
mhm, mhm,
but that was a while ago, that was, like, 2 months ago that I sent it to him, and I heard nothing back, and so I was kinda sad, Jacob,
mm,
thinking, "What am I gonna do, to connect?" And last night, I had a dream where he and I were hanging out, laughing like always, talking, and I turned and looked at him and just wrapped my arms around him and hugged him and said,
wow,
"I'm sorry, I love you," and then I woke up. And I woke up just remembering that dream and feeling it so strongly,
mhm,
and I looked at my phone, I didn't have any text, I went to the bathroom, came back, looked at my phone, and there was a text from my
wow,
cousin. I mean, you
mhm,
can't make this stuff up.
mhm,
And he said, "I got your book a few months ago, and I'm finally getting to read it, and it really
mhm,
means a lot to me." And he just goes on and on saying,
mm,
"I love you. You'll always be in my heart."
mhm,
And then he called me, like, he was talking to me when this started today. I had to
mhm,
get him to hang up because
mhm,
we had connected completely again in spite of our political differences.
mm,
And that's what we are now, I believe, called to do is to try
mhm,
to forgive, to try to connect energetically. And
mhm,
every day there's somebody to forgive. There's somebody that we have to let go of our angst with. And these times are very hard. But when we call on the angels to help us, and my favorite angel prayer lately is, "Angels, please lift me into the light,"
mhm,
and breathe into that. And once they lift you
mm,
into that higher consciousness, you can really see your problems in a different way and see
mhm,
these relationships in a different way and begin to pour that angel healing energy into them. And that's the
wow,
gift of the angels.
mm, wow, and this is a living proof story in real time that literally just happened at the time
It
of our
just happened.
conversation, which I really think the angels wanted to highlight
I
the
agree.
no other explanation kind of stuff and evidential proof of that this stuff does work. And it seems like, yes, I totally agree. It's almost scary how interconnected we are. We have that thought in your mind and we just don't recognize the neurological and spiritual web that we're all a part of,
That's it.
but also this messaging that we're all connected to. I think for a long time within the spiritual community is all about cord cutting, boundaries, all those things. And those, have their time and place, but it seems like a lot more people are tuned into not taking the easy road and just cord cutting, but finding ways to, kinda heal the divide and to find that
I
middle
think we're
ground.
called to a bigger level of unconditional love and forgiveness. This whole cord cutting, protecting yourself thing, I just really don't resonate with it because if somebody has hurt you, that means you have a soul agreement with them, a pretty powerful one if it has really hurt your heart. So if we lift up and go back to the heavenly realms and remember making our life plan, we were
Mhm,
sitting in a group with all of these people who we loved in this lifetime, and they were saying, "Who do you wanna be in this life? How do you wanna grow?" And I know that I said, "I want to become very spiritually awakened while I'm on earth." And so every single person in there said, "Oh, I'll help you by breaking your heart this way," or "I'll help you
mhm,
by arguing with you this way." And each time that would happen, I would have to go looking for a spiritual perspective on it, and
mhm,
I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't had all those difficult relationships. They're part of my soul posse. And then
mhm,
when we're back in the heavenly realms, we remember how much we love each other unconditionally. We
mhm,
remember that, and all of these beliefs and ideas just fall away because we're
mhm.
all just beings of light at our core.
Mhm. I love it. I mean, so from an angelic perspective,
Mhm.
um, let's say you're at your dinner table and you have, everything's kind of politicized these days, and it's like kind of feels like one big gang that we're a part of, the Crips and whatever. But you're sitting at the table, and there's this, we all have that uncle that, we
Right.
don't agree with and is like spewing out stuff that we just, are diametrically oppositional in our own kind of takings. And so, from their perspective, to that person who's listening, like, how could you energetically, psychologically, spiritually,
Yeah.
handle people who, have a lot of views that
Yeah.
goes against our core phyla?
I think that
How could we engage with that?
that's the issue on the table for humanity right now, and I've certainly felt it in my life. I have people that I've been very close to who right now I'm really struggling with. And there's two steps that I can see. I think sometimes there is a little distance needed. So if you're like at a dinner table, maybe you get up and excuse yourself to the bathroom and just go in there and say, angels, help me, lift me, rise me above this, help change the energy in there, and ask the angels to help you when you're kind of in a clear, quiet place, and then go back into the fray of it. And this time, try not to follow the words of the table that are going on that are so upsetting, and try to just lift above and see all the people as the luminous beings of light that they are, and just try to feel that love. And if they ask, "What is your opinion on this, Sue?" Then you go, "I don't wanna argue," and just kinda step out of it, because we have learned, Jacob, that
Mhm,
the arguing gets us nowhere. It does
mhm,
not change anybody's mind or opinion, and it's time for us now, I believe, to get above that and to love each other anyway, which is the hardest call that
mhm.
humanity has ever had.
Yeah, it's a beautiful message, and I think I can't speak for all of us, but I think we're all kind of a part of this cancel culture where there's this degree of cognitive dissonance that we have. There's some we don't agree with. There's just this big disassociation, and I think what people would miss is all those other parts that we share in common that we could talk about, and just the heart radiance that could be there despite some of the strong
The heart
disagreement.
connection. Yeah, right. So, for example, with my cousin, we started talking about his health because 'cause he's got a health challenge he's trying to move through. And it was very heart opening for us to get beyond politics and all
Yeah,
that and just, connect that way. And for everybody in your life, you can connect on a different level, talking about things that connect you rather than things that divide you.
yeah. It's amazing, this is the world that at least I grew up with, and hopefully you did too. I'm sure
Mhm.
there's been times, obviously the Vietnam War and stuff like that, but this has been a interesting time where, I just can't remember where I even thought twice about where someone stood, and now all of a
But
sudden
listen, it wasn't as hard in the '60s as it is now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I attribute that to the internet,
mhm,
social media, all the ways that it has intensified the disagreements, intensified the energy, demonized each side. This is way bigger. Like in the '60s, I was marching against the Vietnam War,
mhm,
but not everybody in the world had to, argue with me about it because
yeah,
I didn't have to answer to the internet. I didn't have to answer to, the emails and the social media. I just had my community. And that is, I believe, a much healthier way to live because it doesn't intensify our arguments and demonize us. But this is where we are. This is what we've gotten to.
mhm,
So now our only cure for it is
mhm,
to lift above it somehow, however that is possible for each of us, and find our memory that we're all part of a soul posse together, that we all love each other intensely in the higher realms. And I tell you what, I know it's partly my old age and the fact that I walked through the '60s and was so politicized then.
uh-huh,
Um, but now I just can hardly bear the personalities of being with people on a superficial level. I just
Mhm,
can hardly do it. It's meaningless to me.
mhm.
So I'm not the person you wanna have at your cocktail party, you know?
Sure. And I think, there's a lot of nostalgia when times are tough, to go back to a time that we may look at, differently than how we felt in the moment. But, for me, that era is always the '90s, like a simpler time, and
The
I
'90s
say
were
yeah.
great. I agree with you.
It's when I was a kid I grew up, but, my philosophy to myself and my clients is, don't get nostalgic, embody that time, like, what
Yes.
good principles do you like about that? Stop, longing for that and just embody that energy,
Yeah.
and,
Looking at
that's
it
important.
numerologically, Jacob, it's really interesting because the '90s were just like the energy of the number 9. It was the culmination of everything we learned in that century.
Yeah.
And we were bringing it all kind of up for discussion, for learning, for letting go of what didn't work, what didn't serve us. The 9 has an energy of completion, of culmination, of success, and then surrender to the new. And all of that was bubbling up in the '90s. And I look at that as a wonderful time of
Yeah.
kind of awakening, enlightenment for a lot of
Mhm.
people. And then we roll over into the new century, and now we're in a whole different lesson, and these years start with the number 2, connecting, and that is our problem now, and it even started with 9/11 in
Mhm.
2001. Suddenly, we're terrified of each other, we're terrified of
Mhm.
strangers, you know?
Mhm.
It is all about how do we connect now in this new world where it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah, it's in some ways like a shifted planet, but the same planet, but the worlds that we've created have made an entirely different universe with all these platforms and innovations. And I always say, technological innovation can't surpass spiritual innovations and evolution. Otherwise, that's doom and gloom. And so, for now, from what the angels are telling you, it seems the biggest thing that we need to do is to kind of end this divide and learn how to see the the oneness that we have and the sameness, and the interconnectivity that we have.
And, that's all, how do I say this? That here on Earth, there's an intermingling of free will and destiny. Neither one is in charge. There's a complex relationship between free will and our destined path or our destined awakening. So what that means is humans can drag their feet on this awakening,
Mhm,
until things get really, really bad. That's kind of up to each of us.
mhm,
Or we can start shifting into our hearts now and finding ways to love each other now and start tipping the scales in that direction. It depends on where you put your focus. Are you watching the news all day or the dark web, or what are you doing instead of going out and connecting with people, loving on people who you may disagree with, etc. Um, we humans are famous for resisting change, and we're at a huge turning point of change on Earth. So, if you and I and the listeners can pay more attention to the angels trying to lift us up and shift into that higher frequency, then we're tipping that energy in making that free will choice that we're ready to shift into the new and the next.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It reminds me a lot of the work that I do with some of my clients who are younger, who fight with their parents for a couple hours, then get grounded, because they don't want to do their homework. And I'm just like, if you just did your homework, you'd have a lot
Right.
more free time and enjoyable time. And as human beings, if we just did what we were supposed to do, it's like we wouldn't have to do as much work or as cleanup work, with stuff. But you're right, change can be really hard. Why do you sense spiritually that's become that is so difficult for people to kind of
Because we
do, you
forget
know
that we're divine beings, that we're beings of light. We come in here knowing as babies that we're just souls and we're beings of light, and isn't this fun to be here? Toddlers are filled with joy and happiness. Wow, I have a body. You know, I can walk. I can figure out how to walk. And then the culture and our parents and our teachers come in and go, well, that person is right and that person is wrong and that person is good and that person is bad. And they just start imbuing us with these crazy values and ideas, of right and wrong, all of that. And so we start forgetting what our true essence is. And then if we lose a loved one, that's a great moment of awakening. Or if we have a near death experience like you did, it's a great moment of awakening because then we see our luminous body of light. We remember, oh my God, I'm so much bigger than this human bodysuit I'm wearing and this earth life I'm in, and we lift above the story. The people who are stirring up so much hatred in the world
Uh-huh.
have totally forgotten that they are a divine being connected to everyone else. They're lost in their personality and their human ego thinking, and they think that's all there is.
Mhm. Mhm. So we've lost a sense of curiosity or, exploration or just the capacity to adapt. And yeah, I think you're right. The world is shifting a million miles an hour in front of us. And when people ask me, they say, Jacob, how do you define mental or spiritual health? I say, simply one's adaptability to change. It's very Darwinian, if you will. But I think really that's where we're at, where we have so many changes and we could resist, persist, or we could find ways to say, I may not like this, I may not agree with this, but I'm going to have to find a way to be adaptive instead of
Right.
maladaptive to these changes.
And I'm going to have to love these people anyway,
Uh,
seeing if they're spewing hatred, they must be in so much pain. They must be
mhm.
so afraid, or they wouldn't be so mean and hateful. And once we get to that understanding, we can just love on them in a very powerful spiritual way. It doesn't mean we have to be their best friend every day, but we don't want to be carrying that hatred aimed back at them. We don't wanna play that game. We wanna send love, forgiveness, gratitude, and lift up and talk to the angels, feel good from the angel connection, and go about our work. And hopefully, our work is meaningful and helpful to the world. And then we can walk through all of this conflict in a way of alignment with our higher soul.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Wayne Dyer once wrote a book called "There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem,"
That's it.
and, he was always ahead of its times, but it's true. There's nothing beyond the bandwidth of, spirituality that, can't handle the challenges, what's in front of us. Now, for people who are trying to, or maybe curious about the angelic realm or open to it, where's kind of like the starter kit place? I mean, obviously, the easy thing would say to be is buy your book, which I would encourage because that, it seems very practical in a way, and it's
Well,
not. But yeah,
it is very practical, and that's why I wrote them in a very practical way, especially the journal, because if you just open that journal to any page, like,
I
for
have it.
example.
I have it right
Yeah.
here. Yeah,
So we
here
just
we go.
open it, let it fall to any page, and my page today is angels, reveal what blocks me from aligning my soul's purpose with career. Show me a future vision of myself, happy and successful doing my true work. And then you start writing. So many people in the world are unhappy because of their jobs, their career, how they spend their day. And if they could use little tools like that, write on a page for 20 minutes about what the angels are telling you about your career and changing your direction, and see how lining your work up with your passion, with your heart, with your soul's mission brings you back into a happier, more loving place in your life.
Mhm,
The books are filled with just little tidbits that will help spark you, to think differently about your own life, your own problems, to connect with the angels for help. And the simplest thing is you can just close your eyes and say, angels, lift me, love me, lift me into the light, and just breathe into that.
mm,
Oh gosh, I feel their sweetness so. It's so close. It is so close to us. It is closer than our departed loved ones, closer
mhm,
than, that we're always connected to the God source. It runs through us as unconditional love. But
mhm,
think of the angels as the humans' first responders whose only job is
mhm,
to help humans get through this earthly lifetime and awaken to their divine self. That's their
Mhm.
only job. So
Mhm.
if we simply say, "Angels, help me, lift me into the light," they're on it. They are
Mhm.
right here helping us.
I love it, and very congruent with everything you're saying from a firsthand near-death experiencer and someone who saw angels in front of them, and I think what you're doing is very, it's almost Dr. King-esque where, you know that famous quote from Dr. King where he said, "Hatred cannot drive out hate, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only love and light can do those things," and so, his words are very much he was very much an antenna for the
He
angels.
was my
Uh,
first spiritual teacher. I grew up in Alabama in the '60s.
so there you
So,
go.
he was the person who, I'll never forget what a sacred soul he was on this
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah, it's sometimes when someone has, like, a suit jacket and is, like, a social political figure, you don't see them as a spiritual teacher, much like you don't see scientists as, like, Einstein as spiritual teachers, but I don't think they were trying to do that directly, but indirectly they were in many
Right.
ways, and his works were very much from, the realms of, that which is, angelic, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he taught us things that we're still trying to catch up with his quote about, "It is not the color of of our skin that determines the value of a person, it's what's in their heart." I mean, so many of his messages, we're still here on Earth going, "Oh, really? Is that how it works?" Trying to figure that out, and he
Yeah,
told us that, like, in the '60s, in the '50s.
yeah,
So, a lot of the times, humans have to really drag their feet collectively to embrace an idea that is so obvious once we take it on, but they're terrified that in some way it's going to hurt them if they embrace that idea. And I think there's a lot of people who are afraid that their sanctity is in jeopardy if they
mhm,
agree with people on the opposite side of the politics. And that's not true. Our sanctity is enhanced when we connect with love, with forgiveness, with understanding. That's our only way forward.
amen, amen, and, yeah, that seems like the biggest message, that's being broadcast is from the angelic realm. I mean, ultimately, that's repeated until, more people embrace it and are able to integrate it. So I'm so glad you're being a wonderful ambassador, of this message and we're able to really, follow your calling because I think that's really where our strongest messages happen in many ways. It's just at that 3 o'clock time in the morning. I was just watching, a fellow Taurian and Long Islander, Billy Joel's documentary,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I highly recommend watching it, because I didn't I always knew he was brilliant, but this just blew my mind, but it's just that dance with just this guy who is brilliant, but also very much human too,
Yeah.
and just a regular guy at the same time, but he was talking about much like what you're saying, where he just woke up at, like, 2 or 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden, he started to hear the lyrics in the song
Right.
called "The River of Dreams,"
Yes.
and there was kind of like a gospel kind of thing, and he's like, "This isn't my style, like, I don't kinda do this stuff," but he took a
Yeah.
shower, and he just kept on singing it, and eventually it became, one of his bigger hits towards, the later
Yeah.
part of
I
his
mean,
singing
all the
career.
great artists talk about that. Paul McCartney talks about waking up with the song "Yesterday" in his head, and he
Yeah,
couldn't get it out of his head, and he didn't know where it came from. He even thought he'd maybe heard it somewhere on a radio,
yeah,
and he went to his friend Peter Asher and said he played it, and he said, "Have you ever heard this song anywhere?" And Peter's like, "No." And Peter Asher became a very famous producer for the Beatles and other
right,
people, but he tells the story of Paul playing "Yesterday" on the piano for him and going, "This just came to me last night in the middle of the night, and I'm afraid it maybe I've heard it somewhere,"
mhm,
you know? And that's
yeah,
because people who are tuned in really can channel in artistic, music or writing or, all the great artworks, I believe, were channeled in from the higher realms because those souls were open to it.
yeah. It's a beautiful illustration that you just gave and examples that when you do listen, just how transformative of a message that is and how people really need to hear it. I mean, someone who's, really, walked the talk and most recently has really listened to this message, what do you feel are some of the barriers for people who are getting bombarded with these messages and just are not able to act on it? And for you, like, how did you break through? You're someone who's walked the talk, you've done it. What's your secret
Well,
sauce?
I'm as stubborn as anybody on the planet, so don't think I'm special or unique, Jacob. I was given a great gift of awakening when I was 29 when my husband died in my arms, and we were mountain climbers, and, I was shown his spirit leaving his body. I was taught everything. I went on a shared death experience. I was
Wow.
lifted into the heavenly realms. And yet in my 30s, I would vacillate between studying numerology and doing numerology charts for people and meditating versus being really angry at the world and feeling like it was unfair that Paul had died. And, the human part of me was angry and cynical
Mhm,
and all hurt, all of those human feelings. And then my spiritual higher self was coming in and they were kind of battling each other. What I say to everybody is you're always going to have that human, cynical,
mhm,
angry part of you. It's part of being human in these
mhm,
dense realms. But the more you can spend time leaning into your higher
mhm,
soul and the ideas that are coming to you from there, that higher perspective of wisdom, grace,
mhm,
and love, it's your choice which one you're going to lean into more. But the more you lean into the light and the higher consciousness, the happier you're going to be, and
mhm.
the more you're going to be able to fulfill your own soul mission here.
Wow, wow, and, this message is being recorded for you, you're in Arizona. Why I'm mentioning that is, when I think of Arizona, there's a lot of, connections to native, indigenous, traditions, and certainly I think what you're describing is very much a Lakota,
Yes.
teaching of the 2 wolves, if you're familiar with that,
It's
right?
so
And,
funny you talk about that, Jacob, because Paul was um, part Native American, my husband who crossed. And one of the big things we did was go to a Lakota healer in South Dakota,
there you go.
drove the long trip to South Dakota in the 80s to no, the 70s to meet this Lakota healer, very famous. His name was Chief Fool's Crow. Um,
Wow.
there's been books written about him and everything, and his mother, Paul's mother, had to make, I think, 100 little bags of tobacco for us to bring with us as part of the ceremony, so we went there and had an amazing Lakota Sioux healing ceremony, and then Chief Fool's Crow took me for a walk and said, Paul's spirit chose you to help him die. So
Mm,
you have to be strong. He's not gonna heal. He's gonna die, and he needs
wow.
you to help him." And that's not what we went there for. That's not what I wanted to hear.
Mhm,
And after that, for the next month of Paul's life before he crossed, Paul would wake up singing Lakota Sioux songs, and he had never
mhm,
known the language. And I would say, "What are you saying?" And he would say, Chief Fool's Crow gave me 2 songs to sing. One was to help me with the pain, and the other was to help me die. And
wow.
he crossed by being immersed in Lakota Sioux tradition.
Mhm. Wow. No coincidences. I've never
Yeah,
once mentioned that. I made posts about the 2 wolves, but never once mentioned it, so definitely Lakota Sioux tuning into Sue Frederick, right? We got the Sioux working together, and, no coincidences, but wow, what a profound story. I mean, I thought I kind of understood the 2 wolves story a little bit, and then I looked into it more where it's really and I wanted your opinion on this, like what you're saying, it's not about ignoring that wolf that's angered, dissatisfied, yeah, because the more you go at it, the stronger that wolf is gonna take a
that's
presence
it.
of you, but it's really about befriending it, honoring it, and having compassion to it, and leaning in, your focus to that other wolf as we know the quality of our life becomes the quality of our focus, so,
That's it.
in many ways, so, yeah, I learned a little bit of a new gear to that whole kinda thing recently, you know?
We're never gonna be above our humanity here on Earth because the minute we're done with the lessons here, we get to leave. It's our exit point. But as long as we're here, we're having to navigate both wolves, so to speak, both
Yeah.
the human side and the spiritual side of ourselves. And we're never going to be fully immersed in the spiritual side as long as we have a body, a personality. And even when someone is crossing, like when my 98-year-old mother was crossing, she would come in and out of her higher soul and then back into her human personality and then back into her
Wow.
human soul. And you could tell where she was by what she was saying and how she would talk to you. It
Mhm.
was fascinating to watch it. And then at the end, of course, leaning totally into the soul and lifting out of the body. And that's our journey here.
Yeah, it's that fine dance, right? And really, really profound. Now I know obviously numerology, is a big part of your work, and I absolutely love numerology myself. Right now, tell us a little bit about what's going on numerologically. I
Yeah.
got it.
Well,
And
we're in a we're in a
what we're
9
kind of going
universal
into.
year this year in 2025, and that's a year of culmination, like we were talking about 9 before.
1990s, yeah.
It's a year of bringing all the lessons to the pinnacle point, good and bad, deciding what we're gonna let go of, deciding who we're gonna be moving forward. So all of that is happening, and then at the same time, in our personal lives, we're feeling the 9, which says, I don't know where all this is going, but I have to surrender to a higher divine understanding of it and not be afraid and try to control it, to really trust that this is a divine order universe and allow it to unfold as it will. And that's very hard when we watch the news or look at politics. But the other piece of this time period is August is an 8 month within the
Mhm.
9 universal year. 8 is a number of being a spiritual warrior, of really owning your spiritual power, but manifesting it through your physical life, your career, your money. So it's almost like the energy of the conflict being heightened this month.
Mhm.
And then next month, we're in a 9 universal year and a 9 universal month.
Mhm.
Next month, September, it gets really clear what's happening, and then we begin to move forward into the new. These are the most intense times this month and next month.
Mhm. Good to note for viewers, and just I think everything is about taking the high road, and we have a great opportunity with what's presented. We just have to, like you say, tune into the right things and be aware. Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool. And so, as I say, from completion we begin. But right now it's really about like I said, about loose ends kind of, tying up and all those kind of things, and just completion of a cycle to birth anew. Um, and I know I like what you said in a way. It's like we don't necessarily know where the story's going, but that trust in the author is very
Yeah,
important. And so I
that's
think
right.
people to kind of trust in themselves and the universe is very
Yeah.
pivotal as these changes are happening. Well, Sue, I mean, obviously it's been a pleasure having you on, and really recommend all my viewers to check out Angel Up, Angel Up Journal, and the study guide as well. And this is a bit of a 9 year for you and your culmination of your not your life, but your career as an author. I mean, what number of books is I can't even keep track. I mean,
Well, if
talk
we
about
go all
numerology with your books. Yeah.
Yeah, if we go all the way back, to when I was a health writer and count all of them, it's
Right.
been 11, actually more than that. It's been 15 books now.
Wow. My God.
But I'm a
Well,
writer, I came in writing as a kid, so that's just what I agreed to be, a secretary for the divine.
I love that. I know our friend, Alison Dubois says that too. That's a great one. But yeah, it's, the universe really chose a good one, and I'm glad that you're able to really hone in and tune into how you could be used as an instrument, for the universe and for God. Now for people to, connect with you, obviously, SueFrederick.com, and you're on
Yeah,
social
that's it.
media they
Yeah.
could follow, and
If
these
and I'm on
yeah.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Sue Frederick, Sue Frederick 22, different things like that, you can find me, but if you go to my website, you'll find the links to all my social media, and it's suefrederick.com. And the really fun thing for people on my website is that I have a free soul path calculator. So if they just go to my homepage and click on soul path calculator, they can input their date of birth and they get all their numerological readings there. And it's
Mhm.
very fun and it's free.
Love it. Yeah, I've heard amazing good feedback, and I've utilized it myself. So really do recommend checking out, Sue's website as well as your books that could be found on, I guess, Amazon. Is that
Yeah,
where people could
on
find them?
Amazon and some bookstores.
Amazon and some bookstores. So, Sue, wonderful conversation. Thank you for bringing, a guest, maybe your 15th or 16th, what I can't keep track how many books, but is there any final messages that you have for people tuning in? Anything that the angels, want to say that we didn't share at this time? Or
Just remember that no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard things seem, you are surrounded by angels, even in this moment of doubt, even in this moment of fear, and they are holding you in unconditional love, and they are showing you a way forward.
Mhm.
Just listen and
Mm,
trust.
wow. Listen, trust. They're showing us that path forward. Thank you so much for that beautiful message and all of your beautiful words, Sue. And congrats on yet another book. And hope to have you back on the podcast and see you in person, soon. Thank you so much for
Yes.
your generous time.
Thank you, Jacob.
God bless.
God bless.
Well, that was just a wonderful conversation with Sue. I thoroughly loved and enjoyed every word, and I was really able to take in so much beautiful information from the angelic realm to numerology to really just understanding Sue's wisdom. And I hope you were able to really thoroughly enjoy it just as much as I did. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please consider again, visiting this channel, hitting that subscribe button, and join us for beautiful conversations like this coming your way. Thank you all for tuning in. Great conversation. We'll see you here next time as we're continuing to ascend the rungs of our eternal ladder. Thank you all and have a great week ahead. Many blessings.